participation. Oh, we're going to continue our public hearing. If you want me to reopen that,
Sure. Do we need the
language.
The language.
I don't have it.
Okay. Well, it's on the.
I don't have it.
Right here,
I would let you read it.
Oh, would you like me to read it?
Yes, please.
Okay. To the inhabitants of the town of Farmington, you are hereby notified that pursuant to New Hampshire RSA 198:20-B3A, the Farmington School Board will hold a public hearing for the purpose of accepting unanticipated revenues in the amount of $9,783.98 from E-rate, which is actually the Bear Fund, which is expected to be received in September 2019. These funds will be used in part to purchase notification system for the district. RSA 198:20B was adopted in 1999, giving the school board authority to accept unanticipated revenues on behalf of the Farmington School District.
I would like to speak. I could too.
Okay, let me have public participation, and then we'll start with, is there any public participation at this time? Okay. Good.
Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit because I have some concerns myself, but also some things I want to clarify, because when we had the first of the hearing and we had Mr. Brown and Ms. Berry here explaining some things that they had concerns on, I wasn't quite understanding where it was coming from at first, because I was hearing three terms or three things coming together and colliding that some of them don't even touch. They don't even talk to each other. And so I was really a little confused at first, but I wasn't sure if some decisions had been made I wasn't aware of, or what information I might have been missing. So I decided to go back and find out what was said on the post and look in the minutes, and I have. And now that I've looked at the post that went out originally, and I looked at some of the minutes, I now can see where some terms got crossed. And I'll be honest, it was a challenging summer this year. It really was. There were a lot of us that were here all summer, some of us who worked sometimes weekends or nights, and sometimes didn't get a break, and things got crossed. So am I completely surprised that maybe a post or communication went out where some things got crossed? No. And the concepts that we're talking about, some of them are pretty complex, and not everyone is really well versed in every single type of program out there. So am I really surprised that even in the minutes some of these things might have been crossed a little bit? No. But do I appreciate that Tim, Mr. Brown, and Ms. Berry came out because they were... Mrs. Berry, sorry, thank you. Do I appreciate that too? Yes. That they came out because they read the minutes in the post and there were concerns because some things were crossed. So now I understand where it's coming from. So I think that what's important here is some things are clarified that would also help with when we put things in the minutes, because this is a program not everyone is well versed in, and I get that. But before I do, there's a concern I have, because one of the things that I keep hearing about is that we're definitely purchasing funds for a security program. My concern comes from, there was this great thing that started happening this summer that's still happening, where police, fire, and the school district came together, and we meet regularly, and it's a good meeting. Chief Drury comes out, the fire chief comes out, and there have been so many great things that have come out, many discussions. We have where we're better labeling internally the buildings and externally the buildings, so when response teams come out, they know exactly where they are. About training, about different types of drills we can have, about different ways we can better communicate and collaborate to create a more safe environment for students and staff. And it's been a great thing, and it still is. And doing this communication solution, not really security, communication solution, was just one of 10 different discussions plus that we had. And my concern is that we're focusing on that instead of all the other really great things that came out, and it still are coming out of it. We meet regularly, and it's been a great thing. So this solution, I think there's been some miscommunication. we were meeting and talking about the fact that we don't have a great way in some of the classrooms for teachers to be able to communicate out if there were some sort of emergency, whether we had to have response come out. And Chief Drury said, listen, I've been looking at different solutions where the police could better respond. If a major emergency happened, it could better respond to that emergency. And he goes, I would like to maybe have a demo done. And so he did. We had a meeting. He brought out a vendor. We had a demo. And it's actually of a program. I worked with an older version of it in another district, so I kind of grilled the vendor a little bit. I'll admit to it, I did. And it was a good solution. The way it works is it integrates with police dispatch, so calls coming in can be grouped together instead of creating chaos of calls from all different, from the district, but also from people in other communities. It actually groups and organizes them and creates organization out of the chaos of those calls coming in. It's at a much lower cost to police and doesn't tax their resources as much. So he was really interested in us looking at it. It creates a communication piece because in the classrooms, you could have this program installed on the computer so that if something's happening and there is an intruder, there's something that they need to reach out to police, they don't want to get on the intercom. They want to be able to quickly and quietly be able to contact emergency services. It turns the computer into a way to contact for emergency, say what exact location you're in. Not I'm in Farmington, not I'm in the school, but I'm in room 31 on the second floor. So they know exactly where you are. And there's 3 steps you have to go through so that you can cancel out. It's not just hit this button and you communicate with the police. There's a few steps, which I like. And then on the other side, there's where you could, but you don't have to. There is an app. You don't have to. And when I was in Londonderry, we didn't use the app. I kind of wish we did. Because there's people like Mr. Gordon, myself, who are all over the district. We might be in a boiler room or up in the ceiling somewhere. I'm not going to be at a computer, maybe. So to have an app option on my phone, for me, that's something I'd probably go with. But you don't have to. There's also an integration with cameras. You don't have to. If you want to, and it's not all or nothing, you can integrate it with the camera services in your school, but, and this is a question I asked specifically, it only evokes the cameras if an emergency situation has been evoked and authenticated. So it's not sitting and watching cameras all day. In fact, you don't even have to integrate it, but if you do, only when that emergency situation has been authenticated, been called out, do the cameras come on for the emergency dispatch. And so we thought, this is a good program, and we were looking at it, and we had it in the minutes that we were looking at. However, Chief Drury, ourselves, we all say, we're not 100% married to this. Why don't we look at other solutions? And so we were, and we have it in our minutes. We looked at we went out to all the different school districts to say, what are you using, and so forth. And it was a great conversation. It was a good conversation. And the fire chief actually came back and said, hey, listen, I went to a regional dispatch meeting, and, our regional county dispatch services said to us, it would be really great if the towns could come together and kind of settle on at least one solution, maybe 2, so we're not having to support all these different solutions for all the towns we support. And we're like, oh, yeah, we hadn't thought of that. Okay, so what are you using? And so we actually contacted some of the towns. We went out to each of them, and the chief came back from the fire chief and said, I heard back, and one of the towns is using the exact same solution that the police chief had brought to demo, which I think is a testament to how much work he put into finding a good solution. And it came back that a lot of the other districts in the state were using that solution. So it looked like we might go that way. However, it was just a discussion at that point. We hadn't gone into a contract. I haven't spoken to the vendor to narrow down and negotiate. Nothing like that has happened yet. It has only been a discussion, a good one, an important one, because it allows for security to be there for staff to be able to call out. It's a great discussion. It's a communication discussion that's important. But that's as far as it got. From there was well, if we do go with this, or whatever, what would be some funding sources? And the discussion came in, well, maybe it'll be in the general budget and we don't start till next year. That's one way. Or maybe, and this is where I think things got crossed, there was the talk about the bear funds coming in from communication. I'll explain that in a second, because this was a way for staff to be able to communicate out. And because I've been looking at ways to improve our communications here in our buildings, and for ways to be able to, teachers to be able to communicate out if they need to. So, okay, I can see that would be one way. So those were just discussions. We weren't even 100%. It's just a discussion. So that was one concern that I had, because this has been just a great thing with the amount of time that the police and fire have put to come and meet with us regularly. And as the school year started, it continued, and it still is. We meet regularly, not every other week now. Been a little busy, but once a month. We're meeting again soon. So what I found is I was seeing that cross communication, and I saw two things that were getting crossed, and I just want to quickly do a quick explanation, because you could spend days talking about this stuff. I'd rather not. Instead, I'm going to talk just quickly about them. One is something we call the capital reserve, or where we have things like the tech trust. We have the building equipment trust. We have facilities, different ones that we have. And the way that this works, it's very straightforward. You have a specific project that the voters have approved you to tap into the trust to pay for. But you don't just pull from the trust. That's not the way it works. Instead, you have to upfront the cost of whatever it is from your current budget lines. You have to upfront the cost first. And then after you've paid for it, whether it's sound equipment, whatever it is, you have to take your invoices and submit them to show that you have paid. And then from that trust, it's reimbursed back to, I'll say, the general budget, and then move to the line that you took from, because remember, you upfronted that cost. You need to put that money back in there because that money was already set to be used for something else. So you ended up kind of with more stuff for the money that you had in there. But you're not reimbursing or sending a grant to it doesn't work that way. You pay for it up front, you have your invoices, you submit it, you get reimbursed that way. So that's working with the trust, the capital reserve. Now there's this other thing that was mentioned called E-rate. E-rate is a federal program, it's not a grant. In some ways it's very similar to working with the trust. In some ways it is. One is you also have a project. But before I even start, the only thing that they are a little different right from the get-go is they put things in these two categories. One is services like phones, internet, communication. The other one is hardware, like for your network infrastructure, like switches or cabling or battery backup, stuff like that. So what you do is there's these forms you fill out. The first one's a 470. I'm not going to go into the forms. There's a lot of forms. But the first one you submit that you're going to do a project. Just like when we go to the voters to say we're going to do a project for the capital reserve, we say we're going to do a project. And then when you decide the project, there's also a bidding process. Just like if you're going to get something from the capital reserve that's over $5,000, you have to do a bidding process. Same thing with E-rate. But theirs goes up to the federal site, and that's where our bidding process is done, up on the federal site with all the other districts in the country. But the thing is very similar. The way it acts, it's very similar that I need to be clear about. You're not getting revenue in. You're paying, just like with the capital reserve, you're paying up front for whatever that project is. And you can break it into little pieces, but you're paying up front 100% of the cost of the project. And then submitting your invoices. Just like I did with the capital reserve, I'm submitting my invoices. And they go through those invoices with a fine-tooth comb. In fact, they audit them. There's not a will we be audited, it's you are. The moment that you submit those invoices, you are audited. And they go through them. And the way that it does differ is that unlike the capital reserve, say I had a project that's $10,000 for sound system. I submit my invoices, and if I've paid $10,000 out of the budget for that, I get reimbursed $10,000 because that was what was approved. E-rate's different. When you submit your invoices to that program, up to USAC, there's a portal, and we use our consultants to do that because there's a lot of processes. There's a special form. It's called a Billed Entity Application Reimbursement Form. That's where the nickname BEAR came in, because that's a lot to say on a regular basis or to type. So it's called a BEAR. And you put in your invoices, and they go through them with a fine-tooth comb. And they say, okay, yes, you bought exactly what you were supposed to get for the project, and they also say, you bought only the things that are allowed that we will cover. They're very, very particular. And then when they've gone over our invoices and they've checked and said, yep, you're good, then they reimburse us. But unlike the capital reserve, it's only a portion. The way the portion works is it's related to your free and reduced numbers or socioeconomical demographic information, free and reduced lunch numbers, for example. And some districts get reimbursed, say out of that 10,000, 50%, so they get 5,000 back. If it's 60%, you get out of that 10,000, 6,000 back. And if you're 70%, you get it. So that money, you paid for those goods up front, 100% no discount. And remember, that money that was in that budget that you used, just like with the capital reserve, same thing, was already set up, already approved for something else. So you want to get reimbursed for that because you now need to go back. And yes, you've got all this other stuff that you needed, infrastructure, whatever, but now you need to also go back and purchase the items that those lines were originally intended for. So the only difference is with E-rate, there's that second category, there's category 1. Category 1 is internet and phones, and they don't even do phones anymore. In fact, now it's just internet. And the difference is, unlike a project, with internet, you don't pay for it one time. You're paying for it every month. And you can't just say, hey, I think I'm going to get funds next September or November. Can I pay my bill then? No, you have to pay now every month up front. So you have to pay for your internet up front. And at the end, that's when you submit your invoices and they go back and you get a portion back, just a portion back. And you know, that portion, because you pay for it from your communication line, different districts, because you pay up front, different districts decide what they're going to do with it differently, depending on the line they use to pay up front, whatever it was, Category 2 or communications, Category 1. But you need that back because that is part of funds that were intended to purchase things such as communication. And maybe it's to buffer because the rate of communication go up, whether it's internet, cell, whatever. Maybe it's to upgrade, fix, or improve your system because, oh, I don't know, your phone systems are so old, you have these old intercoms and you're trying to bring phones into the classroom. Could be. That could be part of it right there.
That's not me.
But at the end of the day, you come back and say, okay, we paid up front, this we got approved, came back, and it might come in September, it might come later. We don't even know or find out until the next year. Like, for instance, I wasn't sure about how it would be approved until September, and the funds haven't come back yet. You're not sure when that will happen. In fact, he's doing his communications right over there, right from his pocket. So at that point you say, okay, so we need to look at, have the rates gone up? We need to look at, do we need a buffer? Do we need to improve or repair our communications? And we did. So that's where that conversation came in about, well, we need better phones. We need better communication tools in the district. And I'm going to tell you right now that the amount that we're supposed to get, which is about $9,000, is not going to put phones in all the classrooms in the district. It's not enough. But the conversation was, well, there's this communication solution. If we went with it, that would be one way we could get better communication from the classrooms to fire and police if needed, but not the only way. Am I looking at ways to get phones? Oh, absolutely, because we need to have answering services at the schools. We need to have voicemail. We need to have those things, and we need to have better access to it beyond the main office. So one of the questions that was asked of me was, could I have some more information on E-rate, which I did. I think I did a quick, good enough explanation of it. I will tell you, though, that E-rate is very complex. There's not just one form you submit. For every single step of the process, and I'm not going to go over them, there is a caveat or an exclusion to each rule where you fill out additional forms for appeals. Because you've been audited and this item didn't quite fit, you can appeal that item. There's forms for you're now doing the bidding process, you're accepting bid. There's a lot of them. And because of that, most of the districts that deal with the E-rate process have consultants. And we happen to have consultants we've been working with for quite a long time. And I actually have them on with us right now. And our consultants, they're Epic Inc., and I have on with me Rosemary ENOS and Maggie Taylor. And Rosemary, Rosemary, am I correct that the first document we ever had from Farmington with you all was about 2009, 2010?
I think it was either that year or the 10, 11 year. some of that stuff.
Okay, and then, so
They're on-
just to be correct, so that, and I'll have you introduce yourself in
They're
just a
on
second.
Google.
And I have Rosemary and Maggie, who are not here in New Hampshire. However, they work with a lot of districts in New Hampshire. They actually work with districts all over the country. So I have them right now doing a Google Hangout with us so that they can communicate with us, and I want everyone to be able to hear very clearly. So they're going to tell you a little bit about what they do, how they're part of the E-rate process, how they're actually an official, they have to be, an official consultant group in the USAC portal, and that they work with different districts here in New Hampshire alone. In fact, you work with, I think, Dover, Epping, Hudson, Franklin, Shaker Regional, who am I missing?
Oyster River?
I know there's a few more in there.
Oyster River?
Franklin, Oyster River, and
Merrimack.
Communications working just
Merrimack.
SAU 61 calling me.
Perfect. So if you can just introduce what it is that you all do, and my explanation, was I pretty close on it, or?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So basically, E-rate started about 22 years ago, and I started then, and it really was more of a telecommunications environment and a networking environment, but really focused on telecommunications and building up the internet into school districts. And that's what the FCC focused on that. And that's how we get the funding, is through everyone who has a cell phone or a telephone, although not very many anymore at home, but if you have a cell phone or if you use any kind of telecommunications, the bills you get have a fee on it that make up the USF fee, and that's where the fund starts, and then it's delegated out to a number of different programs, one being the E-rate program, which is where the school districts get their funding. But it was all about connecting schools to the internet is how it really started, and wanting to get faster, better speeds. So anyway, that's more of my background. As I originally started out doing some local connections inside schools, but then also branching out into what the wide area networks and getting schools connected. And so it kind of was just a natural thing that I fell into this E-rate world, because that's what it is, and I was always working with school districts, so that's where the fund came from and how we used it to get telecommunications better in school districts. And in the 22 years, it's kind of changed a little bit, where it's really focused on realizing that the infrastructure inside the school has to be almost as good as the infrastructure on the outside, so that, networks are really being built up today. So there's a lot more technology involved, which is fine, because that's what I did in the past. And so I was doing a little bit of consulting on the side of just building networks, and then I decided, rather than be in the network building world, I'd rather help schools find the money and answer the questions of the government, because the expertise of networks isn't really something that I would expect the K-12 world to really be worried about. I mean, you want to get the internet into your schools, but you don't necessarily want to spend your time talking about, your megabytes and your gigabytes and all those things, and answering federal questions. Because back in the day, it was really stringent on what you were using the internet for, and how you were using it, and how you connected your schools.
Rosemary, can I jump in just for a quick second? Because we're going to answer you some questions we're going to ask you. But I do have one thing. So just the quick and dirty of it. Basically, the funds that come in, they're not funds. It's E-rate program allows you to purchase, because you pay up front with your lines in your current budget, and you submit your invoices, which, you help with submit the invoices up, and you put in the BEAR, the Billed Entity Application Reimbursement Form. And basically, you don't end up with additional funds to the district. What it does give you access, though, is for more resources, hardware, stuff, for the amount of money that you started with already in your budget. So you're not getting additional revenue in, you're getting additional resources and hardware in, correct?
Right, you're getting a reimbursement, which is what the form is called, for the funds you've already spent.
So it's basically getting more for less, almost.
Right, so you're getting a reimbursement, the fund is reimbursing you for a particular percentage based on your need, and you can get that back into your budget usually they replace the budget that they took it out of, or if there's something that's happening that you know you need some funding back out of your budget to go somewhere else. A lot of people will put it there if it's a technology budget or if it's a telecom budget.
So different districts can decide what lines they would put it into, and sometimes it might be because of the lines they took it out of or the needs of the district.
Correct.
I'm going to see if anyone of the school board, do you have some questions that you would like to ask our consultants?
Not right now.
I know that there were some questions from the community. Do we have them down somewhere from the two folks? That were,
Right, and one
I guess
was the background.
One of the questions was, how can we use our E-rate reimbursement? Is it structured that we are only allowed to use our E-rate reimbursement bear funds in a specific way, or does that just come back to the budget?
It just comes back to your fund, whatever you so choose it to go. It goes back into your bank account, and then it's up to the school district to determine which budget item gets replaced or brand new. There are no rules within the E-rate program beyond that reimbursement form of getting that filled out and getting the funds back to you.
So once we've expended the money on something and we put in our reimbursement funds, there's nothing holding us back from using those funds in any way that is within our budgetary.
Right.
Purview.
That's correct.
Thank you for the word.
So if you did something like for upfront, say there was a project like wireless, and you used, say, your equipment fund from the technology line of your budget to upfront the cost of that project, then when you were reimbursed, you could put it right back into that line to pay for the items originally intended with those funds.
Correct.
Any other questions?
But you wouldn't have to. So if that money
Could you
came
put it
back
in
into the
another
general
line?
fund, could you put it into furniture?
Yes, you can put it in another line.
It's just a lot of districts, they probably try to keep it within technology to keep it clean, correct?
Yes, in the beginning when I was doing it, it almost always went in the tech budget, like 99% of the time, and then as time went by, sometimes it got moved, depending on where it was needed.
And especially if a district had to use one of their other lines to pay up front for the cost of something.
Right.
Right. Okay.
Right, a lot, yeah. If something happens where you have to buy a switch because you need it right away and you had some other fund you were using and not your technology fund,
Equipment.
you can put it back there.
Did you have another one?
Well, I guess we just wanted to be clear that there's no penalties for us to use the E-rate fund, refund,
bear fund.
bear fund
Bear.
Right.
in any capacity. So I think that was
No penalties at all.
okay.
None.
I think that's what the big question was for us before we decided to move forward with the purchase of
Anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the question came in because E-rate was used, and the concern was that we were purchasing something that might not fall under that very strict, here's what the projects can be and where that initial piece that gets you the refund can happen from.
Right.
But we're on the second stage of that. We've already expended for this project. This is the refund, and now this is what we're allowed to do with that reimbursement.
Right. And I think because looking at the minutes, it also mentioned there were some words crossed about refunding the capital reserve from E-rate, and that's not it. They don't even talk, those
And
two
that was
entities don't
rescinded and we're
even
not
cross
doing it.
paths.
Yep.
Right. It just doesn't work that way. So those two entities don't even speak, and I think that's where some of that crossed over. And after reading the minutes in the Post, I understood why Mr. Brown and Mrs. Barry had concerns.
Barron.
And I totally get it, because Mrs. Barron, because that language just got crossed, and there's some concerns there. But no, those two entities don't even speak, they don't interact at all. Even though they have some parts that are similar, they themselves never interact. So I think that was also where some of that.
So correctly speaking, it's the bear funds as a result of the E-rate program rather than E-rate funds themselves.
Right, there's no additional revenue that's coming in. I think that was also kind of misleading on how that is worded.
So it's money that we've already spent.
You got it.
Does
And-
anybody in the audience have any questions for the consultant? Yeah,
Not for the consent.
or in general, about the public hearing.
Yes.
So,
Come to a microphone.
yeah,
Thank
come
you.
right up.
Maybe I'm not understanding correctly. It sounds like you're trying to make the point that the E-rate money or the bear funds are not revenue?
Right, it's not additional revenue.
Okay. So the initial purchase that came out of a line item in the budget, where did that money come from?
It depends on what it is, because there's, like I said, there's Category 1 projects and Category 2, and some of these projects started a long time ago.
Okay, but where did the money for that come from?
Depends which one you're talking about, because there was, we're in a contract right now, we're coming to the end of it, and it started before I came on, and we're coming to the end of it, and that one included multiple lines, because it was a project that
Okay.
was internet.
So let me ask the question differently. Did that money come through taxation?
I'm not sure what you mean by that, I'm sorry.
If you spent money out of the general fund, did it come from taxation?
Did it come from a line from the general budget originally to upfront and pay for the cost 100%? Yes, because you have to.
So that money was raised through taxation as revenue to begin with, correct? Okay, so we raised and appropriated?
It was appropriate.
Okay.
So it does come out of the budget, out of the line.
Janet, did you add something to that?
I'm not sure.
It was raised through, as an appropriation, which when the taxpayers approve our budget, they approve the budget. So, yes, it was part
Okay,
of the
so-
budget that the taxpayers approved.
Raised and appropriated, the revenue came through taxation.
Right, but it doesn't necessarily mean that was raised and appropriated for E-rate. It could have been for something different in the budget.
Understood, but it was
Yeah.
raised and appropriated and raised through taxation. So we buy some technology, qualifies for E-rate or bear dollars there. So when all is said and done, another check is written by the federal government?
Wait a minute. The money in the budget, though, was for an item that was decided the year prior, not for the project that the E-rate's funding. So, for instance, it could be you have approved for the equipment line for specific to buy some computers, some projectors, some switches. But then it turns out that the wireless in one of the buildings has gone end of life and needs replacement, or whatever it is. That's a one-time project. That's not something that was planned in the general budget. It's a one-time project, and somehow we have to pay for that. It's not in the general budget. So what E-rate allows you to do is say, okay, you've got this one-time project, I'm doing Category 2, which is the wireless needs to be redone. It's not something that was in the general budget. What was in the equipment line was money so we could buy some computers, projectors, things like that. So then we have this one-time project where we can upfront the cost and pay for it, and you have to take it from a line. Maybe it's from that equipment line. Maybe it's from the software line. You have to decide as a district. In some districts, they make a decision where they can pull it from. Then you get reimbursed because you've bought the wireless. You bought the stuff that wasn't in the general budget originally, but it's a one-time project. The roof came in, whatever it is. I'm just saying it's a one-time project, and this one, I'll say wireless. And so now you've paid for the wireless, you use the money up front, and then they reimburse you. Well, normally you'd want to put it back into the line that you pulled from or lines you pulled from, because you want to be able to go back and buy the additional original things that were intended with the general budget. Because that one-time project's a one-time project, if you're doing Category 2, I'm just saying. And it's not going to be you don't want it in the general budget all the time. You're not redoing the wireless every year. And so that's where that's a little different. It's not, at that point, you would come back and say, okay, I've paid for the wireless project. I got the reimbursement, the partial one back from the state, from the federal government, sorry. And now I kind of need the money back into those lines, because now I do need to purchase those computers, those projectors, and the couple of things that I put in that we put in originally need to be purchased. So that's how that worked. I'm sorry if I was not clear on that. I apologize.
All right, let me ask my question in a different way then, because I don't think I was clear. I'll just use round, simple numbers. Let's say we started with a budget of $1 million, and we raised and appropriated for that budget, and along comes an unanticipated need for a $10,000 piece of equipment. We take $10,000 of that $1 million that was raised and appropriated through taxation, we purchase this $10,000 piece of equipment. At the end of the year, we've spent $1,010,000, correct?
No,
No.
we can't overspend our budget. If we have to spend $10,000 from something, we have to short something else. And
Okay.
we do this
Because-
all the time with different things within the budget. If we have a student that's out of district for special education, we have to, within our budget that was raised and appropriated, we need to move our money around, and we do it in a very methodical way. We keep it generally within the function codes. If you have to go between function codes, generally it's done with board approval. So we manage our bucket of money, and we have to move money from different things all the time, not just for E-rate, but for other things as well.
So Jen misspoke when she said you go back and buy the things that were originally appropriated in the budget?
You can, but the budgeting process happens a year in advance. E-rate isn't on the same timetable.
I understand that.
You
I'm
may
just trying
have
to-
appropriated a different purchase, a different item, but if a need comes up and you have to move money around, the school board has the latitude to move within the budget.
And I understand that process, but what was just explained is that after that unanticipated technology equipment is purchased, the E-rate funds are received, whatever, they go back and purchase what was originally in the budget that was
They can.
planned
They
for.
can,
They
but,
can.
and
It-
I think, Steve, what part of it is, if you had $1 million and you had, and correct me if I'm wrong, you had $10,000 that was purchased for this special project, you might only be getting back 4. Okay, so in that, it wouldn't be $1,010,000, because you wouldn't be getting back the full 10. But that is partly why this is also being voted in a public hearing to accept the funds, because it is over and above that initial appropriation.
Well, I'm having trouble with the claim that it's not revenue. Because if we get $4,000, we still raised and appropriated $1 million, so now we have $1,004,000.
No, the 4,000 isn't
But
in
you
addition
spent
to your
that
million.
$1,004,000.
Correct, so we have $1,004,000.
And you still have 1 million,
You still have $1 million.
because you've already.
So we didn't get the $4,000?
You did, but you.
You spent 10,
you
you
spent
got
10.
4 back, so you actually spent 6. So you still have $1 million. You just,
You
now
don't-
you have
you don't have $1 million
6,000
and
less
4.
because you've spent.
Yeah.
You've
So
you spent-
essentially, Steve, what's happening is you're getting it at a discount. You don't get to spend more than $1 million, but you get that original $10,000. You spend the whole amount, but you get a rebate on it. So you're getting back monies out of that.
A piece of
that.
So you
And then you have
raised
to
and
spend it.
appropriated $1 million and received $4,000 back from the government that you're saying is...
What you spent.
spent
I
10.
understand that you spent 10, but you're telling me the 4 is not revenue, but you raised $1 million.
Right,
It's a
so
reimbursement.
you raised $1 million. 10,000 was ear tag for these computers over here, because that's in the general budget to do a replenishment. But this year, we got this one-time project, and we had to upfront that cost from there to pay for the one-time project, and then they're reimbursing our portion only, so now I can go back, and at this point, it's gonna be spent on
What's
the
the
original
portion?
things it was supposed to be
Out
for.
of the $10,000, what's the portion?
It varies. Yeah, it
But
varies.
it's not
for-
$10,000.
No, it's not.
So you lost money.
In a way, you kinda did, yeah.
You lost money.
So that's when things such as you have to vote, which we did, for our share, because the district does encumber part of it. Where's that share going to come from? And we did have that vote, that where our share would come from. You didn't actually gain money. You gained resources,
Let me ask you
not
again.
money.
The town, for that $1 million that, in our fictional budget here, the town wrote a check for $1 million to the school district, correct? That's where you, okay?
More or less.
The federal government wrote you a check for $4,000 in our scenario. That's $1,004,000. How is the $4,000 not revenue?
Can I give you an example? And then Mr. Roberts may be able, if you got $10 and you buy something from me for $1, okay? You still have $1 exchange. If I say, you know what, I charged you too much, I'm gonna give you back 60 cents of that, okay?
Now, how much money do you have?
You lost 40 cents.
You don't
Okay,
have more than 10.
you've spent 40 cents. You don't have more than your 10. You still only have $9.60 to spend.
The sources of the money are different, though. You took $1 million from the
It was the same
taxpayers.
$10. You had your $10. You gave me $1, and I gave you back part of it.
It's still
It's
your
the
money.
same. It's the same concept with the pot of money that you're talking about with the $1 million and the 10.
So the federal government never writes a check.
Oh, I'm sure the federal government writes.
Their
Well, but I
reimbursement,
gave
only
you
a
back your-
percentage.
Okay, but you don't
cents.
return it to the people that paid the $1 million. So that you
It's
end
still
up with
part
still
of our
$1 million.
budget. It's still part of our $10 million that we have planned to spend.
Because
You
I still
you
have to
raised and
come up
appropriated $1
and buy
million from the
computers.
taxpayers and received $4,000 from the federal government, and you're telling me the $4,000 isn't revenue. I know when somebody writes me a check for my business, it's revenue.
When you spend 10 and they give you 4 back, then
It's
you
a
spent
reimbursement.
6.
It's a
You have $1 million,
rebate.
you spend 10,000 on your equipment, that means you have $990,000 left. Now you get a check back for $6,000, now you have $996,000 left. You don't have $1.010 million or $1.004 million or $1.006 million. You have $996,000. So you haven't spent your $1 million, you've lost $4,000 on the special things that you had to buy, and now you have to try to rebudget, and maybe instead of 4 computers, you can only buy 3 with that budget line.
Well, you
You
still
still have $1 million to spend.
Yeah.
I don't like to say that we lost money because we have the value of whatever we purchased.
Right.
So we didn't really
There's no
lose.
reason.
We have the value of the asset that
Right.
we
There's no
decided.
guarantee that that money will come back to us
No.
either. It's
No. In fact, they now have reduced the program. Am I correct, Rosemary, that now it's just internet for Category 1, correct?
That's correct. So no more voice or cellular phone
Reduction.
services.
Yeah. So we don't have a guarantee from year to year. We don't. In fact, even when we put in an application, I started this process way back last August. I didn't even hear about it until the summer, and I didn't get the official notice until after September. With the we don't know, and it's a long process with a lot of forms. I've gone to trainings, webinars, you name it. It's a lot involved in it, but that's how that works, and we don't know. So one thing I would like to do, though, only because we've had them on listening, is there any other questions for the consultants, or should they're here to answer any questions anyone has, but,
Anybody?
Could we hear again where they're from, please?
oh, and where are you from? Is it Ohio?
We're located in Solon, Ohio, but we cover, right now, we have clients in 14 states. So
Epic
we just-
Incorporated.
Yeah, Epic Inc.
Epic Inc.
It's Epic Inc. is the official company, correct?
It's called Epic Communications Incorporated.
Okay. And you are on the USAC portal as one of the official consultants. You have to be as part of it, requirements, correct?
Correct. We have a consultant number that we have to get into the portal.
Right, because it can't be just any consultants. You have to go through a certain process to be approved so that you can be one of the E-rate consultants.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
And thank you both for joining in. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay.
you.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Okay, bye.
$9,000.
There is technology.
City line, these are-
Thank you. I just wanted to let them go so we're not sitting with the stream open listening the whole night.
It still smells a lot like revenue to me. Even if I accept payments from a customer that buys product from me, I had to pay for that product. The difference may be profit, but the full amount that they gave me is revenue.
But if you refunded them the money, is that revenue in their pocket?
If I refund, so who are you refunding the money to?
I'm saying we're getting money from the Bear Fund.
But you're not refunding money, you're getting revenue. The school district is getting revenue. The school district's not refunding anybody.
If you get a refund on something you've purchased, Steve, is that revenue?
No.
Okay, that's what it is.
We're getting a refund on what we've purchased.
A percentage.
A percentage.
Percentage.
We get a
We're not
refund.
getting
We
full
don't get a
refunded.
full refund. It's a percentage refund on what we've purchased.
Right.
So instead of just getting just the computers and projector, which was what that budget line could encumber, and that's all it could cover, now we can get, I'm just throwing out the example, projectors, computers, plus the wireless access points, plus some cabling, switch, whatever. but back to that, in fact, back to that original money and a teeny bit less because we don't get the full amount.
Now, the E-rate is in a different cycle, though, fiscal
Yes.
year?
Yeah.
So you're a year
Yes.
behind everything?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely correct.
So technically, you've overspent your budget then?
Well, it depends though, let's not, remember I said there's a caveat to every single
I'm just,
line?
well, you take,
One of them is with category 2, especially if you're doing a one-time
Yeah.
project. I'm just gonna do the simplified one. I can submit the invoices for category 2.
yeah.
If your project has been approved already, and which ours has, that sort of thing, you can submit the invoices and get back them regularly. Communications is only a little different because you can't like pay the bill here and then you gotta pay it as you go. You have to
Yeah.
pay your bill all the time
We used to
regularly.
say-
It's not a one-time, yeah.
Take it from Peter to pay Paul, Peter got robbed. 'Cause technically, you're losing money. We technically lost money.
So that's when you have
Because
to
you're not
look
getting
at.
fully refunded, so you, in good faith, the townspeople paid and approved the budget, as Steve was saying, the $1 million. They approved that through the budget committee, as well as the town passed it. And then a project came up.
Right.
Unforeseen project. Well, we're gonna take money out of that budget was approved by the town from.
You
Yeah,
apply
no,
for
you
that
don't.
project.
But you
You
apply
don't
for
start the project until you're approved.
You have to.
Yeah.
So you would be,
So it
you
would
know
be
what your
part of the
funding
budget.
is.
Right, so when we knew what the fund was, so I'm just gonna throw one out.
Yeah.
You knew what the project was that was failing.
Who knew?
So
The
I'm gonna
town
say
knew?
wireless.
The town knew?
No, I hadn't even gotten that far. I'm saying,
Okay.
we in the school district, we were like, okay, we know the wireless is failing, send it
Right.
like at the elementary school, it's going down. And we find out what we put in to have a project with E-rate, and they say, okay, this is how much total you could get funded, and they let you
That's
know
an
ahead of time.
important word, could.
Could,
Yeah.
yeah.
But they let you know ahead of time what will end up being your total amount that you're gonna have to encumber as a district, that you won't be getting back, that you will have to encumber somehow. So they let you know way ahead of time. So you have to ahead of time plan to put things in such as put out to a vote to your voters, which we did for things such as, are you going to take out that portion from a trust? Are you going to be pulling it from, where are you going to be pulling it from? And then have that time to be able to do voting at a deliberation or a public hearing or wherever, which we have done because I had the whole year process for
Now, is
this.
this what Mary spoke of last time?
Yes.
From a capital, this probably should be all taken
And
out
that's
of
why
capital
it all
reserve.
kind of ended up being crossed.
Right.
Right. So
Yeah.
you have to know ahead, you know way ahead. And then you do a bidding process, and with their bidding, I like it because it's up on the federal site and it is completely regulated by them, so that way it also kind of covers the district because the bidding process is scrutinized and it has to be done correctly because they do it. We can put a link when we have a bid going on, but it goes to their site. And then even if they accept a bid and they say, okay, these are the vendor that we think is that went through all the correct steps and everything that can be approved, maybe you only got one, depending on how big your project enticed enough vendors, we can then look at it and look at the amount and say, we're only gonna do this portion, or we only want to do this portion. And we can say, we want to hold off until we get the final 100% approval that we are getting funded before we even start.
Do they know the percentage at that time what you're getting funded?
Yeah,
funded?
they come back with your numbers, because we were teetering back and forth between 60-40, 70-30.
Yeah.
And so they were constantly coming back and forth, and we just teeter. I know at one point, I think when we had Middleton, we got up to almost 80-20, but right now we teeter 70-30, 60-40. And it's something that I keep in communication with them constantly, because it is a process. It's not just something you can quickly read, but you really have to do a lot of involvement. And I'm on with them constantly, but I've also done this in other districts where I've dealt with other consultants, so I knew some of the process coming in. But I'm on with them because things change every year, and I have to get up to date.
I think too, you mentioned that we're losing money. I think it's probably better to look at it in terms of what it allows us to do is to take the money that we have and get more for that same pot. Because
Yeah.
if we had that $10,000 that we could spend on this project, by getting reimbursed for 4 of it, that gives us, it stretches our
Your
ability
buying
to
power.
get more pieces within that same $10,000.
So we end up with more resources, more hardware, more stuff than the original amount could have done on its
Does that
own.
work for you?
But less of what
Even-
you were budgeted for.
Even if we went out to the trust and said, hey, we need
Within,
this amount of money, we're still, that's what we're stuck with. E-rate will say, okay, well, if you have that amount, here's some additional, so you can make your project go further, but you don't get additional revenue in. That's where it's a little confusing. Yes.
I was just trying to think of an example of something that would be parallel, but something that's a little easy to wrap our heads around. And I don't know if anyone here has ever participated in the light bulb reimbursements. So you buy light bulbs and then you submit a coupon to the state and they pay you back for it. So like if it was your house and you knew you needed to buy light bulbs and you spent $30 on the light bulbs and they reimbursed you $6, are you going to put that as $6 of revenue on your personal tax return?
If I did that in my business and did not claim it as revenue and said that I spent $30 on light bulbs, it only cost me $24, I think the IRS would have an issue with that. The analogy to a refund, I can't buy something at Home Depot and get a refund from Hannaford. I get the refund from Home Depot, and chances are I'm giving them the product back too. But your refund, as you want to call it, is coming from a third party that's unaffiliated with the vendor. Sounds a lot more like revenue than a refund. If the vendor was giving you money through a rebate, then I would say, yeah, that's not revenue. But you're getting this money from a third party, not from the person that you purchased the equipment from.
But your example kind of, I guess like Denzel Washington in Philadelphia, explained to me like I'm a 2-year-old. You bought $30 worth of light bulbs. You pass in a coupon, they're going to give you a refund.
No, there's a program that you can, after you purchase, if you
A
do
light bulb.
LEDs, the
Right.
New Hampshire Electric Co-op or
Right.
whoever will send you something back. They'll reimburse you if you
Right.
submit your stuff.
But-
So it's akin to like, it's a rebate.
But you're missing a step there. I didn't take from my heating fuel to pay for those light bulbs.
You might have.
You might have.
But then I lost, but then I'm going to be reimbursed a portion.
But then you
So I
can put
lost
that money
heat.
back in your.
But I lost
Back
heat.
in, you
might get a
put it
little
back
more
in
than
your
you would've
budget,
got before.
then you can spend it on something else. You basically, you got light bulbs for a discount.
Right.
You got to
But I
spend-
took out,
You spent your
So-
$4
I took out
guys.
$30 out of the heating bill. I'd like to have a heating bill of $30, but anyway.
Yeah.
But I took money out to pay for that $30. I get, even if it's $10 back and as a refund, if you will.
Yeah.
Now that $10 gonna go back and pay my $30 heating bill?
No.
I lost money.
Mr.
That's
Roberts, did
exactly
you
what
want to
I was
add?
just explained by the people here. I'm only getting a percentage back. I'm not getting fully refunded from taking $10,000 out of computers that was
It's not a
budgeted
full
for.
refund.
No.
No, it's not a full refund, it's a partial one. So
That's
you
what I'm
have
saying. So
plan
to
way
listen to
ahead.
Janice's explanation, it doesn't work that way. I lost money out of where I took the $30 to get from. I'm gonna get a portion back to refund that $30.
You didn't lose money because you have the value of the light now.
Yeah, you have a
You may
light
have to
bulb.
put on a sweater, but you've got the light.
I got lights, but I still,
your sweater.
I lost money in paying for both. But
So would you have not
Because
paid
you
for
have
the
the
light
value of the
bulbs to
light.
begin with?
Here, you gained additional things.
I
to have
understand that, but
value.
then you lost out what was
But you
budgeted
have to
for in
plan
the
for where
fiscal
you're gonna
year.
come from.
But I don't
Absolutely
think
correct. We did.
that's true. Because it came from last year's budget. Am I right?
Portion of it came from last year's budget, portion of it came from, it's taken from some of it was technology fund. I mean, there's a bunch of different pieces of this in order to be able to put together the project to do this. So it's not one line's funding that this was, we may have robbed Peter and all his friends to pay Paul, but not just Peter.
Right.
A lot of this explanation has given me another question. It sounds like the E-rate money can only be used for unanticipated technology needs. In years past, that's not how budgets have been presented to me. So I just want to get clarification that this money is not restricted to unanticipated.
Two pieces. E-rate, the E-rate program for that wireless project that she's talking about. That, the E-rate projects can only be done either for services, internet, or for infrastructure pieces, and those are restricted. But when we get the bare funds in return, those come back to the general fund and can be placed at the district's discretion.
But the initial purchase doesn't have to be an
The
unbudgeted
initial purchase has to be, that project has to be within the guidelines, and they are very strict guidelines.
But it could have been in the
yes.
initial budget. It's not an emergency, something broke
Correct.
type of.
But if it's just something, right, but if it's just something that we've put into the initial budget, that's not a project that we've done through E-rate, We don't get reimbursed for that. We get reimbursed for those special projects that go through their bidding process and are either category
One or
one,
two.
which is just the internet,
Communications.
communications, and then category two is just the infrastructure pieces.
But we have budgeted projects in
We
anticipation
do have
of that.
budgeted projects, yes.
In anticipation of that revenue in the future.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so that was 2 yeses to its revenue in the
Well-
future. I'll leave it at that, thank you.
Anybody
All
else?
types of ideas.
Future monies, yes.
Phones, we need phones.
So are there any other questions up here? Because I am going to,
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Thank you, Jen.
Where are we at?
Okay, so,
4 minutes.
I know, we're at Farmington High School in Farmington, New
Yes.
Hampshire. Yeah,
the
be fresh.
The vote on the 19th rescinded using these funds to reimburse the technology fund. That's fine. We need to accept the funds. And then how those are going to be expended at this point is still up in the air because we don't have a definitive that this is exactly the communications solution. I don't even want to, it's not just an alert system. It's not that. It's more than that. And we don't know for sure that that's exactly where we're going. Right now, it's where police and fire chief and via them dispatch has said, we'd prefer not to have multiple things that we're trying to chase. So if we're going to do this, this is the solution we'd like to do.
Okay.
So in that, more than likely, that would be the solution that we're looking at. But we don't have a contract, we don't have a final, here's
so-
what that's going to be.
So tonight, we just need to
Accept the funds.
Okay.
Done.
Do I have a motion to accept the funds?
So moved.
Motion by Stan to accept the E-rate funds.
Bear funds.
Bear
Bear funds. Bear funds.
Bear. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion?
And this is just to accept the funds? not-
Just to accept the funds, not expend the funds.
Okay.
Right.
And the funds are in the amount of $9,783.98, just to make that clear.
You accept that?
Yeah, and we said, I think you said 1 point up to 10,000 because then you
No,
said-
we cannot do up to. It
Yeah.
has to be the amount. Yep, that's per the attorney, so that's the amount.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Ms. Loudon. All right, I'm going to leave the public hearing open for another 2 minutes because, well,
That would be the hour?
that would be the hour.
Okay.
So we're going to table the approval of minutes because we don't have our regular minute taker to make the corrections.
Do you want to do the 17th? I think we could. Okay.
Of June?
Of June.
Well, Butch won't be able to vote on them.
I won't.
Oh, that's true.
Linda
So you won't
and-
have, okay, never mind.
Yeah,
You would have a majority of those here, but
it's
still.
just me and Stan.
Right, still a majority of those here.
We'll table.
Okay.
Do I have a motion to table until
Table what?
the minutes until
All
the...
minutes.
All minutes.
All the minutes until the 21st. Motion by Mr. Lewis, do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous. All right, reports, Valley View.
Ready to show it?
Money's for safe.
When you're ready. Click this freeze button here, because I got frozen, you'll see the word freeze disappear, and it's already up and ready for you. It's already at full screen the moment you hit freeze. Okay?
Gotcha, thank you. Hi, good evening. Yes, sir. Can I go, yes?
Yes, you can,
Okay.
because there's no vote at this point, so yes, you can.
Thank you. Just a few updates for about some things happening at Valley View and to give a heads up on some things that are coming. Mr. McGurty and I have been directing traffic in the afternoon down by the parking lot there as you head up the hill towards Valley View. We've been able to organize the flow of traffic better. especially for those parents who come and pick up their children in the afternoon. Things are much safer. Several parents have actually expressed to me thank you in that they feel it's much smoother and much safer. So that seems to be going well. Back on September 26, we had the first celebration was held in the multipurpose room. We are changing the idea of bucket fillers a little bit different. We're going to call it the Tiger Award. And the Tiger, just so that everybody remembers, the Tiger values are trust, integrity, genuineness, empathy, and respect. We've also given all the staff 3 Tiger tickets. And basically what we're asking is if we can catch the students doing something that exemplifies those values. The tickets will be published on one of the bulletin boards in the school. And then we're looking at some periodic raffles for the kids, just some little school stuff and other things like that. Again, just as a way to say to the students we appreciate what they're doing and the values that they're exhibiting. Last year, Cindy Berry and I started developing the professional learning communities. We focused on team building and basically looking at the assessments that teachers were given. This year, that we plan to continue that work, do some more team building. We're looking to ways to expand it and to figure out some uses for the time. And Blake and I have been talking about several ideas. Currently, to let people know, there is a book fair being held at VVCS. It runs until the 11th. The after-school times are 2:45 to 3:15, so if parents want to come up, at least you missed the worst of the traffic. Last year, we had a great turnout for the book fair, and we really do hope that history will repeat itself. The last thing I just want to mention, because I have one more thing after this, but in Ashley Davis's second grade class, one of her students is Bryson Woodman. And right now, Bryson is currently rated 6th in the United States in his age bracket for motocross racing. He got that distinction over the summer.
At the Loretta.
Thank you. I couldn't remember. Yeah, the Loretta
Follow
Lynn.
him or anything.
Yeah. Okay. And so my congratulations go out to Bryce and to his family. And he also appears as part of a magazine. And they have a great picture that shows. It looks like a group of them taking off, and he's one of the guys in the picture. So it's quite cool. The other thing that we're going to be doing that I want to warn, just give parents a heads up for, and they'll be seeing me out doing this starting tomorrow. And I'm going to step away from the mic a second so I can give people my handout, and then I'll be back.
Oh, here, I'll pass that for you.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, I learned.
Let me take those. There we go.
Okay.
I can't move that, but I can move him. Okay.
I don't think we need that on, do we?
But he's going to project something.
Oh, all right.
Yes.
There we go. All right. My understanding, listening to some of the people when I've been talking to them at Valley View about what's coming, is I guess we're kind of going back to the future. Step away. There we go. Okay. What we're going to be asking is instead of the normal way that we've been doing drop-off in the morning, is that we're going to ask cars, as they come through the parking lot, and then to make a loop around the building. The drop-off will be up in that corner of the building up there, kind of where the sidewalk ends, and that we're asking that because the problem we're having is that Thayer Drive in the morning, and then it gets really backed up, and that backup goes out onto Spring Street. If there ever was an emergency and police or fire or ambulance had to get up there, it's going to take them a while to get through all the cars. And everybody that's listening tonight that's been in the parking or been in the car line in the morning knows this from firsthand experience, that it's really congested. So the hope is that by asking cars to go around to the back and around to the front, is that we'll be able to move most of the cars up to Valley View and try to keep Thayer Drive a little bit more easily accessible for emergency vehicles. We're planning on having a few cones here to direct people this way. Again, the drop-off area is up there. When the buses come up, the buses will swing up to the front of the building. I'll offload their kids in the front of the building and then head back out. I'm planning on having somebody here to basically help direct people. I'm also planning on having someone here to direct parents this way or to direct staff towards the parking lot. Using some of the stickers that we were using over the summer, and just going to give everybody a 3x5 card and ask them just to put it up on, up on the dashboard so we can see for staff members, so we can help basically have them funnel either into this parking lot right here, or if there's no buses coming over into here. There is a group of parents that do like to walk their kids up to the main door. I am going to be talking with them over the next 4 days in the morning and in the afternoon. I'm going to ask them, would they please still go with everybody here? When they get up to there where they would normally drop off, is to just tell the person there, we are going to park and walk our child in, and ask them basically to park either here or some of the parking here. Again, this area should be free of vehicles, and so it will be safer for them crossing. Okay. I realize it is kind of back to the future, but everybody is used to the original plan that's been going on for the last couple of years. But the police and fire basically have come to me and asked if we could try something different. Okay, because the concern is, like I said earlier, is for safety and for getting emergency vehicles up there. It's going to be much more difficult with the way the roads are now. The other thing, again, this is only for the morning. The afternoon seems to be going well because everybody, for most of the car riders, are parking behind the high school and then coming back down. Plus, with Blake and I directing traffic down here, we've made it so at least, again, when the walkers come out of the NPR and getting into their cars here, we're able to move cars up when there's no more pedestrians basically out here in front of the school. As they come up, they usually stop here. I watch to make sure and see how many cars are packed in here. When we can't fill any here, then I stop people, create a hole, and then allow other cars to move out. So that way, traffic kind of keeps moving. Obviously, one of the problems is that we are at the end of a one-way road. Okay, and I understand that, and I know that when we're super efficient, sometimes it's not super efficient down here. We're doing our best, basically, to keep things moving and keep things safe. Okay, but again, this is only for the morning. This change is only going to be for the morning, and that I would ask everybody listening to please remember that supervision by the school starts at 7:30. Okay, and please, if you're parked out behind the school waiting, please, when you're not just dropping kids off. Okay, because there is no supervision. Okay, please stay with the car. Wait till they pull around, and we'll get you through as fast as we can.
So there'll be an adult there when
Yeah.
the drop off, when you're prepared for drop off, the adult will be out waiting.
There should
So
be,
that
we're
will be
looking at least 2 to 3 adults here to help direct. Students will come in through the door at that end of the building.
So if there's no adult, they don't drop off the children.
Exactly.
I
If
guess
there's
that's the
no
point
adult, please don't drop
I was
off.
going with.
What's that? Yeah, there'll be a set of cones up here that will designate, here's the drop-off area.
Okay.
Because I simply don't want people to start dropping off like
Right.
2/3 of the way down the building. Okay.
Around the corner, kids are getting out of cars.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay?
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Questions for?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right.
You want me to just shut this off?
I'm just going to go in order, and Farmington High School's next on my list,
Yeah, no
so,
problem.
of my agenda.
Matt, do you need the computer at all?
Okay. Go ahead and shut it down. It's okay, whatever. I will be drunk. See, that way it's not in your eyes.
Hey. Hi, good evening. So Farmington High School is all things NEASC. So we have started the process, and we started on October 1st with our first visit. NEASC came, kind of gave us our marching orders, and there's a timeline in all the board packets I hope everybody has read. In October, we will be getting ready to send out student, parent, community surveys. Our self-reflection is due on March 1st, and that's going to be a compilation of our standards. We have 5 standards, and we're going to be starting to take a really hard, deep look into the high school and what we do here. And it's a community event. It's every body, and I do physical body, in the high school is part of this process. So, and some from our central office also, and our board and our parents. This is really important for us, and we are looking for our community support, our parents' support, our board support. Superintendent, we're looking for everybody's support as we go through. Our very first committee team will be here in April. I will have those dates for you. They will spend 2 days in our high school with us, going through everything, talking to parents, talking to students, talking to us. And that's April of 2020. So we are actually really excited to say that we are on the road. The timeline has been included in the board report. The timeline will be shared with all parents as we do our survey. So before I move, does anybody have any questions on the NEAS process? Because I don't want to go through.
What's the cost?
Well, it's already in our budget.
What's the cost?
Do you have your budget pages?
The cost.
I don't know.
For,
You don't, okay, that's what I'm at.
it's around $3,400 or so a year for our NEASC membership.
Yeah?
Our site visit is scheduled to be around $1,500. That is in the budget for this year. And then when we get to
$1,500 will cover.
$1,500
What's the committee? 5?
It's the site visit
sorry,
is 2 days this spring. This is for the initial site visit. This is not our decennial visit, which will be in 2022.
Okay.
Which is total towards the end of 2022, about 11,000.
Which is less than it used to be. They've cut down the number of days. They've also cut down the size of the team that they send.
Yeah, so there'll probably be about 3 people because we're such a small high school.
And that also includes the chair people in the high school that are chairing the NEASC too. That's their stipends. And
Their stipends are $1,500.
This is why we got rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
This
No,
is what?
well,
Budget reasons and,
budget reasons when we hit a $1.2 million cut that year.
yeah,
Because I was part of that cut.
and as well as some of the committee members were, I don't know.
They've changed their process.
I hope so.
yeah, it's changed a lot.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. On October 18th is our first coffee and conversation with the principal. It is on the website. It's something that I really would encourage all parents, community members, middle school on up to come. We're going to have our first one on vaping. And we have Lori Warnock coming from New England Poison Control. She's coming, it's a roundtable. She's not going to stand up and lecture. It's a, let's have this conversation and let's have some show and tell. Because vapes are very impressive now, and they're hard to identify. And they are one of those things that when you see them, they almost blow your mind. They come in forms of watches now. They come in a hoodie, so that instead of kids looking like they're chewing on their strings, those are actually vape tubes. So they're selling sweatshirts. So these are the things that I want to get out there, and as we go along each month, we're going to have topics like this. And I encourage all parents, everybody, to please come to that. Yes.
If parents can't come, will there be resources made available afterwards?
Yes, so I'm ordering resources, but I'm also asking, I was thinking of taking some really good pictures of the show and tell that day. Lori cannot leave her show and tell with us, but just to have those pictures, because I had gone to see some of them and I thought that I was pretty up on it, and I realized that I'm really behind the times. They're getting very sophisticated, and it is a very big problem in our high school and probably down in our middle school, and it's something that I take extremely serious. So I encourage everybody to please come. And this one will be in the school library from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. The next one, I do try to do one at night because I know that parents do work and not everybody can come during the morning time.
So when is the next one? Is it going to be the same topic?
Yes, we probably won't have Lori there for the second one, but that's why I wanted to get some really good pictures. But we also have Ashley Sheedy, our SAP counselors will come. We also have some more topics that we're going to be rolling out. But it's very informal. You just come, we sit around, we have coffee. I mean, you can ask questions,
Okay.
you know, even if you want to lead off. You know, I'm here for an hour, I'm yours, ask me. It's very important to have those engagements and those conversations together. Also, just a plug that October is National Principals Month. It is a whole month. So I just wanted to kind of give that plug out there, and to my fellow principals, you know, just, you know, a round of respect out of me to you, because, you know, it is a very hard job. So I wanted to say I appreciate all that you do. Thank you.
Any questions for Mrs. Gardner? All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Forgot something? Okay.
The new traffic pattern starts next week?
Yeah, it starts next Tuesday. I might have forgot that.
It starts October 15th on Tuesday after the long weekend.
I'm sorry.
New traffic pattern.
Sorry, I thought you
October
said
15th.
tomorrow, so I'm glad you said that.
Tomorrow is what I heard.
Oh, talk to people tomorrow. New traffic pattern starts October 15th.
Yeah, so hopefully that reduces some panic.
Okay.
All right,
Not tomorrow.
all right, Mr. Castagnoy.
Good evening, everyone. A few things about Henry Wilson. So I'm happy to report that unsafe early student drop-off has dramatically improved since last month. It's not perfect, but we're getting there. Parents and students are respecting our communication about safety reminders. In general, students have not been arriving to school prior to 7:20 a.m., which is now only 10 minutes before drop-off officially begins. Whereas at the beginning of the year, we had students waiting before 7 a.m. Last month, I mentioned to you that every month I will be meeting with each grade level of students. So this month, we'll be focusing on kindness and perception, which is something that has come up with our students over the first couple of months of school here, is the perception of how people take what comes out of your mouth. So we'll be addressing that to the student body. We're working together as a staff by discussing our superpowers from the Life is Good book by Bert and John Jacobs, who are the founders of Life is Good. And they say that there are 10 superpowers that are within every single one of us. And they include openness, courage, simplicity, humor, gratitude, fun, compassion, creativity, authenticity, and love. September's superpower focus for us was authenticity, and October's superpower is courage. So we discuss each superpower during our monthly staff meetings and also within my weekly SMORE newsletter to staff. Teachers have been busy looking at our STAR data in mathematics and reading to form our intervention RTI groups for the next 6 to 8 weeks. Our teachers meet by grade level to review the data, analyze and discuss the data, and form our groupings. Our Tiger Tickets, which is our student recognition for students doing something good, and our Student of the Week nominations have been extremely successful so far. Our grade level Tiger Ticket boxes have been full of tickets every week, and we're recognizing some amazing students as nominees for Student of the Week. So if you are in the HWMS lobby, please check out our Student of the Week bulletin board, which is right there. Mrs. Pomeroy, our assistant principal, has started an attendance competition with each grade level of students. Each week, an entire grade level has an opportunity to receive open gym time on Friday mornings if they have the highest attendance percentage for that week. Our fourth grade students won the first week at 97% attendance rate, and I'm happy to say that none of our grade levels were under 94%. So our goal is to boost that average and stay in the high 90s percentage-wise. And again, if you're in our main lobby, check out the new contest board. So that's all I have.
Any questions? All right.
All right, thank you so much.
All right, financials.
So my, basically just fiscal year 2018-19, we have submitted our tax rate setting documents, the MS-25 and the MS-24. They are with the Department of Revenue right now for review. We've also submitted the DOE-25, which is contains some of the same financial information, but a lot more statistics. That is also at the DOE for review. We have our annual financial audit scheduled right along with Mr. Roberts' new pickup schedule.
Good.
Drop off, excuse me. So that will be happening the week of the 14th. We had to make a couple of revisions to our revised revenue estimates based on a new Medicaid ruling from DHHS. There are certain services that we used to be able to submit for Medicaid as a medical service, and they've changed some of the criteria. So we have been advised to revise those downward because we may not get the anticipated revenues that we put on.
That we had budgeted.
Yeah. Yep.
Budget.
It is with great pleasure that I announce that Farmington was awarded National School Lunch Program Equipment Grant. We applied for and we received notice that we were approved for $27,000 plus for the replacement of the freezer and the walk-in refrigerator at Henry Wilson Middle School that's aging and desperately needs some help. We have a public hearing planned for that on 10/21, I believe is the date, where we will be looking to gratefully accept this unanticipated award on behalf of our students and the community. After that has been accepted, we will follow our typical bid process, and a vendor will be selected based on an RFP that we will put out. So that's kind of exciting.
That's awesome.
We had one bidder on our RFP for performance contracting, excuse me. They came and they presented to our team, our facilities team. He's going to be bringing some more information back about how we might walk through the audit. It will be something that we'll be bringing much more to the community and the board based on that process. It's our
facilities audit, not our financial audit.
Right.
Yes.
No, two different products.
Energy audit.
Yeah, an energy audit. The facilities piece, the performance contracting in a nutshell, is a way of taking money that's already appropriated in the budget, looking at ways to make energy efficiency gains so that you basically don't increase the budget, but you are saving money on fuel and things like that. It's kind of a very long-term approach to winterizing and building improvements in energy efficiency. So we had a viewing today for our surplus vehicles. We had 3 buses and a van.
You didn't come up, Steve?
No.
3 buses and a van?
Did not.
There's room in the driveway.
No.
We could package deal, 3 of them.
4. 3 buses and a van.
They
going out or they went out?
Well, we're accepting
Today
bids.
was the viewing day.
The viewing day. We're accepting bids up until October 11th. So if you'd like to entertain the option, that's there. From what I understand, no one came by to view them. So, but if you would like to schedule something, we'll be happy to.
It came up around fair time. I was really surprised I didn't hear from you. I didn't even go.
So that's really all I had. That's kind of a little synopsis.
Any questions for Jana?
No.
All right. All right, I have policies. If everybody is good with it, I'm willing to accept these as a final read as the lot, ACE, procedural safeguards, EHAA, computer security, email and internet communications, ADC, GE, GBED, JICG.
It's triple cross referenced.
Tobacco products, ban, use, and possession in and on school facilities and grounds, GBAA, sexual harassment, employees and staff, IHCA, summer activities, IKE, promotion and retention, IKF, high school graduation. Do I hear a motion?
I'll move to accept as listed on the agenda A through G as a final read.
Do I have a second? I'll second. Discussion? They were in the packet last week,
These were in for first read last week.
or last meeting. Are you good
Last
with them?
meeting, yeah.
Did you have any questions? All right. All those in favor? Aye.
Thank you. I will have hopefully the last chunk of the required that either got left off or were part of the numbered pieces. And I will have those as a first read on the 21st, but I didn't want to overcomplicate things by having first, second, and multiple reads chunked into the same. So, thank you. And those will also then be put up in the interim for public comment if anyone has any questions or comments.
And nobody had
There was
responded for
no
any-
response from these, from the website, so.
All right, New Hampshire School Safe Grant.
Okay, a year ago, August, so in August of 2018, I was approached by the Office of Social and Emotional Wellness within the Department of Education. They were applying for a grant from the U.S. Department of Justice titled BJA Stop School Violence Threat Assessment and Technology Reporting Program FY 2018. And I've given you the longer piece. There were two attachments referenced. The second one simply says, and this also applies to Indian reservations. So I didn't print that, but this grant at this point does not have a dollar amount attached to it, but what it does do is give us resources around threat assessment and looking to see what else we can do to continue the conversation that we've already begun with fire and police. But also provide us more resources as we go. So at the point that I get a dollar amount that's attached to this, I will certainly come to you if it's something that needs a public hearing. At this point, I don't have that. We are in the process of first meeting to hear more about what's possible. And I think what's been explained to me, it's much more, there are only six schools in the state that are included here. And they are looking to tailor that to what we're doing. It's SAU 9, SAU 62, 26, 51, 4, and us. So
is
it's
this
Conway,
informational?
Newfound, Pittsfield, Mascoma, Merrimack, and Farmington. It's informational at this point because I don't have a dollar figure to give you for acceptance, but just letting you know that we have been tapped to be part of this. When I was approached last August, I said, yeah, sounds great, let me know. And then I heard crickets, and suddenly I got an email a few weeks ago that said, guess what, we just got funded. So these things don't move quickly, but sometimes they do move, so that's where we are.
All right?
Yep.
Any other new business? Old business, performance contracting.
Actually, that's already been covered.
I was gonna say, you already covered that.
my report.
And I think we covered the sale of surplus vehicles too.
We
right?
did, yes.
Unless,
We could do it again.
No, we could do it again. Just to,
The 11th.
You paint them
Put it on your
camouflage.
calendar.
All right, public participation.
On the changes to Medicaid reimbursement, where you said you reduced anticipated revenues, does that impact the year that we're in now, those changes?
Yes, it does.
Okay. How much did you reduce the revenue forecast by?
We had put in for 150,000, but most of our reimbursements were in speech services, and some of those are not going to be able to be reimbursed. So it went down to, I believe I put in 20,000. I reduced it down, and I'm not alone. A lot of the state has done
reduced by
that.
20,000 or by 20,000?
220,000.
220,000.
From 150?
Yes.
So by 130,000.
Yeah.
Yes, we've been told that pretty much the rug's been pulled out.
And we expect that hit in the year, the budget
Yeah,
that
in the
we're
budget
operating in now?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, they passed it in July, and then they got the guidance out in September after people had
Well, I know, you start so early, you don't know,
Yeah.
that's why I wasn't sure if it was,
Yeah.
this is coming or this is here.
Yeah,
No,
no,
this
it's
is here.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other public participation? All right, our next meeting is on October 21st. We do have also upcoming another budget workshop on the 24th. So, all right, thanks for tuning in and coming out. See you then.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The workshop is here or Henry Wilson?
We will announce that on the 21st, to be determined.